From friends to enemies and now back to friends again. The world is watching today's meeting between Erdogan and Putin in St. Petersburg following the major breakdown in relations several months ago. The Turkish leader has chosen Russia as his first foreign destination after the attempted military coup. And that has sparked concern among Ankara's Western allies, which were already troubled in the wake of the attempted overthrow of Turkey's government.
It's been hailed as a historic visit, a fresh start, but just 6 months ago, this event really wasn't something on the cards. Relations between Russia and Turkey haven't exactly been the warmest since the shooting down of a Russian military jet by Ankara on the Syrian border back in November. That resulted in the deaths of 2 Russian servicemen.
Today's loss is due to a stab in the back, delivered to us by the accomplices of terrorists.
I think if there is a party that needs to apologize, it is not us. Those who violated our airspace are the ones who need to apologize.
President Erdogan stubbornly refused to apologize, and Putin hit back with a whole raft of sanctions against Turkish tourism, trade and business, resulting in billions lost for the Turkish economy. What started off though with a letter of apology turned into a phone call, and now this face-to-face visit in Russia's second capital, St. Petersburg. This is Erdogan's first foreign visit since the attempted coup in his country just 3 weeks ago. It's very significant that the destination is Russia, given the very harsh rhetoric that's been happening between the two leaders over the past several months.
The head of the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran says Tehran will start the construction of 2 more nuclear power plants. Ali Akbar Sadi says President Hassan Rouhani has ordered the launch of a $10 billion project to build the power plants. He said Iran has maintained its uranium enrichment capacity and the production of the heavy water after the nuclear agreement with the P5+1 group of countries. Salhi noted that the export of Iran's heavy water is on the agenda, and the country's nuclear industry is in good condition.
Leader of Iran's Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, says maintaining a distance with the head of arrogant powers, namely the United States, is one of the most important principles of the revolution. Ayatollah Khamenei said there is no room for negligence when such principles are concerned. He made the remarks in a meeting with top officials from Iran's intelligence ministry. The leader highlighted the importance of the intelligence ministry, saying that it must never be put in a vulnerable position. Ayatollah Khamenei stressed that the ministry must stand against all those who try to harm the Islamic establishment.
President Erdogan, he says, if the European Union does not give Turkish citizens visa-free access to Europe, as previously promised, he could let 3 million migrants loose on Europe. Waleed, that is a serious threat. They've got enormous leverage, and they could do serious damage to Europe, couldn't they?
Look, this is not the first time, but this is the first time the threat is made official.
What happens if Erdogan does fulfill his threat and just says, you leave, 3 million of you, go that way to Europe? That's huge.
That'll be chaos, you know. Imagine them going millions through the Aegeans, again through the Balkans. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's trying to use them to get something. But I don't think the Europeans at this point in time are interested in this.
No,
they would be interested in bringing the refugees back home to Syria. Yes, that I can guarantee.
But there's no way the Europeans would grant free access to 70 million Turks. Come on over to Europe visa-free. That's never going to happen, is it? I mean, at this point,
no, that's a different story. That's in long-term negotiations, not at this point in time in the middle of a crisis. That would be a wrong move to do.
Moscow and Beijing are declaring that Washington will pay the price for deploying the THAAD missile system to South Korea. According to Sputnik News, they are reporting that having made the decision to deploy their THAAD anti-ballistic missile system, the U.S. is deliberately undermining the stability in Northeast Asia and across the globe, prompting the just indignation of China and Russia. That's according to a recent editorial in the People's Daily, that is the official organ of China's ruling Communist Party.
A U.S. think tank says recent satellite photographs show China appears to have militarized Spratly Islands in the disputed South China Sea. The Center for Strategic and International Studies says Beijing has built reinforced aircraft hangars on its holdings. It says there were no military aircraft seen at the time the photos were taken in late July, but the hangars have room for any fighter jet in the Chinese Air Force. The United States accuses China of militarizing the region, but Beijing has repeatedly denied doing so, saying the facilities are for civilian and self-defense uses. China, in turn, criticized U.S. patrols and exercises for ramping up tensions in the region. China claims most of the South China Sea. The Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Taiwan, and Brunei have overlapping claims.
The United States has deployed 3 B-2 stealth bombers to Guam to ensure full combat readiness in the region. This as tensions simmer following Pyongyang's recent ballistic missile launches. U.S. Strategic Command says the nuclear-capable bombers will conduct local and regional training sorties and integrate capabilities with key regional partners, including South Korea and Japan. An official said the deployment was part of Washington's commitment to supporting global and regional security. The deployment comes a matter of days after North Korea fired an intermediate-range ballistic missile that fell into waters in Japan's exclusive economic zone.
A 2-day conference is underway in the Lebanese capital, Beirut. The event is aimed at launching the League of the Arab Nation and boosting the legal resistance for Palestine. Over 100 legal experts, political analysts, and activists from across the Arab world have come to the Lebanese capital to voice their support for the Palestinian struggle.
It is really remarkable to have all this gathering in which supporters of the Palestinian as well as the Arab resistance from all Arab and Islamic countries coming together here in Lebanon in order to support the Palestinian cause.
Officials at Prince George's Hospital Center in Maryland are relocating patients from its neonatal intensive care unit after 3 babies tested positive for a potentially fatal bacteria. Hospital officials say the babies tested positive for the bacteria Pseudomonas, which can cause severe illness and death. Local media reports 2 babies recently died at the hospital, but it is not yet clear if the bacteria was a factor in those cases.
Meanwhile, we do have an update regarding the Zika virus. We've just learned that a newborn girl has died from the virus in Houston, Texas. It is the first death now directly related to the virus in the state. The infant's mother had reportedly recently traveled to Latin America when she was pregnant. Health officials say the baby was infected in the womb and died shortly after being born. Now, this comes as Florida reports that a 17th person has acquired the virus locally. The person lives in Palm Beach County, interestingly, though officials believe that the person in question contracted the virus during a visit to the so-called Zika zone in Miami.
The American Bar Association has just passed a shocking new rule that could make it very difficult for religious attorneys to practice law. Here with me to talk about this is Ken Klukowski from the First Liberty Institute. So Ken, can you just tell us what is this rule?
This is ABA Model Rule 8.4, which makes it a legal ethics violation for a lawyer to engage either in conduct or verbal conduct, meaning your speech, or to have business or social activities that anyone believes shows discrimination on anyone on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, socioeconomic status, as well as the normal categories of race, sex, etc. But this rule is written so broadly that anything that I, as an attorney, discuss with someone over coffee or at a restaurant, or anything I say if I'm teaching Sunday school at church, all of those are social activities that could be used, if I'm speaking about those issues, to say that me or any other Christian attorney is actually engaging in unethical conduct for which we could be disbarred and banned from being able to practice law.
So now not only are they going after the people who are fighting these religious liberty cases, but they're going after the lawyers who are representing them.
Absolutely. And this would impact any Christian lawyer or lawyers of other faiths, such as Orthodox Jews, no matter what kind of law you represent, because, again, if you're teaching in your house of worship, any of that could be used to say that you're engaged in unethical conduct. But also, let's say you're a liberal atheist lawyer. You're not going to take on representation for churches, ministries, Christians, because how can you talk about your case without having bar authorities come after you? So this is an attempt to purge observant Christians and other conservatives of faith from the legal profession, and to make all other attorneys in the profession fearful about taking on representation for people of faith or conservatives in general. This is unprecedented. Nothing of this nature has ever been done. It is a gross violation of the First Amendment, both of lawyers and of their clients.
Local coach is taking his fight to the federal court here in Tacoma. You remember this guy. This is Coach Joe Kennedy. He used to coach football, an assistant coach over at Bremerton High School. But you remember last year there was controversy swirling over his prayers, his center, 50-yard line prayers after the game. Well, the district decided they're not going to hire this guy back. And now the coach, being represented by the Conservative Liberty Institute, is filing suit in federal court here in Tacoma, claiming that this Bremerton School District have violated his free speech rights.
Tonight, some resistance against BYU's effort to get its sports teams into the Big 12. Just over 24 LGBT groups are appealing to the conference to not invite BYU because of its honor code policies.
Hey, this is the letter that was sent to the Big 12, and Commissioner Bob Bowlesby claims BYU openly discriminates against LGBT students and therefore should not be playing football or sport in the Big 12.
Being a part of a Power 5 conference, in our opinion, is a privilege, not a right.
And BYU shouldn't have that right, according to this guy.
Big 12 member schools should be protecting and respecting LGBT athletes, fans, and administrators, and BYU's policies don't currently do that.
Hudson Taylor is a former All-American wrestler who went on to found Athlete Ally, one of 26 LGBT groups that signed this letter to the Big 12. In it, the groups, which include the National Organization for Women, claim BYU actively and openly discriminates against its LGBT students and staff, with sanctions that can include suspension or dismissal for being openly LGBT or in a same-sex relationship.
Which schools are and are not a part of a conference, that is a choice.
The letter urges the Big 12 not to consider BYU, claiming doing so would undermine Big 12 values.
Having BYU be a part of the Big 12 really sacrifices that.
In a statement, a spokeswoman says BYU welcomes all whose conduct meets university standards. And while the school is open about its honor code and students commit to it when they apply, the school maintains one stated sexual orientation is not an issue. Taylor admits he doesn't know what kind of impact the letter will have on the Big 12's decision-making.
I hope they do the right thing. I hope they remain consistent with their stated policies. But I guess time will tell.
According to a new Gen Forward survey, young Americans overwhelmingly support LGBT rights. Americans ages 18 to 30 were surveyed on employment, health care, and adoption policies. The survey found that there was an increase in support of those policies, especially among young white people. 92% of young adults support HIV and AIDS prevention, 90% support equal employment, and 80% support LGBT adoption. There was large support for training police on transgender issues and insurance coverage for transgender health issues across all racial and ethnic groups surveyed.
Well, I told him it was, at first I told Carlos that I'm sorry, I don't know how you're going to react to this. I'm your mom and you're my son, and I am falling in love with him. He said, are you really? I said, yes, I am. He said, you know what? I was scared to let you know too. I am too. He was too, falling in love with me, with his mom, and I was falling in love with my son. And then we ended up talking, and we took off to the park, and we ended up asked him, will you ever date your mom? And he said, will you date your son? I said, honest truth, yes, I would. because 19 years, you're the best thing that ever happened to me, and I really want to be with you the rest of my life. And I really want to be with them. It's kind of hard right now, but I don't care what people say because we're going through a lot right now. We try to keep it a secret, but we couldn't do it no more because, you know, my other kids found out. At first, they didn't like it. Then they started liking it. They're accepting it. And my mom, my dad, my brothers, my family's accepting it now.
Honestly, I really didn't think we would. We were both consenting adults. If it comes down to it, you know, it's just like the gays. They're you know, as long as they're over 18, everything's fine. You know what I mean? So I thought, you know, I'm 18, she's 8, you know, well, I'm 19. I actually came down when I was 19. But you know, she's an adult, I'm an adult, I can make my own decisions. I never thought it would blow up into something like this.